Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. It's very exciting to be sharing this moment and this space. Um, I would like to start by asking you if you could tell us a little bit about Advent's history, its mission, and why you do the work that you do so passionately.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to share this story and for telling it so beautifully. The UFM film, I'm speechless. Really, really phenomenal talent, and we're very honored to have worked with all of you. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you very much.
So with that said, our history of the company and why we started to do the work we did. So back in 2004, Jose had the vision after having worked on a commercialization initiative at Texas A&M University and consulted on how to commercialize technology, had the opportunity to choose a technology or an opportunity to commercialize out of the university. It's sort of a thank you for the work that he had done for a few years there. And rather than choose to commercialize a particular technology, he decided to focus on taking a particular expertise that the university was very well known for and commercialize that for the benefit of economic development. And that expertise is tourism and economic development. So Texas A&M University just happens to be world-renowned in that space. And so it made sense to exploit that expertise for the benefit of communities around the world and really leverage heritage preservation, experiential tourism, and then our background in economic development and innovation and entrepreneurship, bringing those together to encourage economic development in places where it might otherwise be pretty challenging.
And I mean, I think this is a very unique intersection between those three forces, between heritage preservation, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And I would like to know a little bit more about how those three forces interact with each other.
I want to second Joan's comment and gratitude towards your school, your team, amazing crew that you sent our way. I was very impressed when I received the first version of the film. Exceeded all our expectations. It's amazing, and we're looking forward to perhaps having more opportunities like this.
Same, definitely.
Within our practice, and I wanted to kind of clarify, maybe tell you a little bit about my background. My English is not as good as Joan's because I'm from Mexico originally. I went to school at Texas A&M University and just fell in love with the small community. Before going to A&M, I actually spent about 12 years in Mexico City growing up after being born in a very small town. So in my heart, I always had that kind of small town presence, and Mexico City is pretty big. It is huge. And moving to Texas, moving to the university, I went from a 20 million person city to a very small 120,000 population at the time. Just kind of wanted to give you some context because for me, the opportunity to have haven't had the opportunity to work in these smaller towns in Mexico, but also in Texas. I've always kind of had that passion about being able to serve those communities because we truly believe that this is the time for having that international exchange, that opportunity to have, like in our case, have your students and our crew come together and produce something better than if we were just producing that locally, because we're adding a new dimension, new culture. It's a great testament to that effort, to international development. So within that context, we do try to leverage entrepreneurship. It's key to what we do. We have to make sure that every project that we embark on has a sustainable development component that is financially, economically sustainable. Obviously, innovation is a great way to inject those enablers, if you will. to be able to do that. And I wanted to touch on that heritage preservation side. We have the opportunity to present or to talk to very small communities. Communities that only have 500 people in their little town, but we get invited by their county judge or by their state government to go and talk to them. And in every single case, someone in the audience will ask, "Hey, we used to have this factory, we used to have this company, we helped them, but then they sold the company, all the jobs went to Mexico or to India or to China, and now we have this dying town. How do we deal with that?" And something that we share with them is we tell them, look, you have to invest on those things that no one can take away from you. And that's your heritage, your natural resources that you have, the youth of your community. So that has kind of become a theme. And now that's why those three components are part of our practice.
So I'll just add that when we work in these small communities, human resources, so people, are both limited and available in an interesting way. So a lot of the small towns will say that they are losing their youth because they don't want to live in the small town or they don't think there's opportunity. And so they really want to focus on improving the quality of life so that the youth want to be in these places. Meanwhile, those same people who live there, they tend to be pretty entrepreneurial. They have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit just inherent in their culture. And so the opportunity to leverage that natural entrepreneurial spirit and encourage it with support for innovators and entrepreneurs through business incubation, and then to bring the global resource. So even though those youth who want to get out of small towns, actually those places can be very attractive to people from other parts of the world because they're so authentic and they have such rich heritage. And so leveraging relationships and bringing exposure to small towns that have rich heritage and assets that are being developed really creates a global exchange opportunity to bring those things together. So it's not obvious, but it actually works really well to take advantage of all of those things. So there's inherent sense of entrepreneurship that just needs to be developed and encouraged. And the cultural exchange also it's just a human desire to have that exchange, to go to new places and experience new things. So even if this small town in Texas loses its youth, it's probably going to attract youth from another small town in another part of the world. So there's that exchange is going to happen, and somehow it just works out. So.
Thank you. And I would like to ask, because when I first heard about your companies and I started doing a little bit of research, I was impressed by the wide variety of projects that you have developed, and it always made me curious, how can they have a technology incubator, an event space, a venue, an academy? And I would just like to ask you if you could tell us a little bit more about specific projects that are part of your portfolio and how these promote the dynamics that you've previously described.
That's a very popular question that we're asked, because from the outside looking in, it looks like we're just doing everything. And it gets pretty difficult, even though we have a specific process that we use. But every single project that we embark on has to fit a certain structure, and that deals with the community development framework that we have put together. So, for instance, we have a live music venue in our town. Well, that is part of our heritage preservation process, because that music venue is in the oldest building in our town. And we needed to rescue that building. It was going to be sold, and then it was going to be demolished, and a new building was going to be put in place. And so some of our students from our university came to us and say, "Hey, Jose, we need to save the building. All this building, 166 years old. In Texas, a 160-year-old building is pretty old. In Mexico, here in Guatemala, it's probably not, that old. But for us, that's why it's so important to save those buildings." And anyway, so what we are developing in our downtown is an experiential learning campus. So our friends in the community are not really aware of that, but that's the main reason we're developing. We have the kind of the cultural side with the arts and music and so on. And then we have the technology and community development side, which incorporates the education side. So as such, we have everything from a gallery in partnership with our university. It's part of a National Science Foundation program, which is a very important part of our national policy initiative. We have a record label as well. We have these type of businesses that basically help all these members of our community become entrepreneurs themselves. So if you're a musician, you pretty much have to be an entrepreneur as well. If you are an artist, if you're an engineer, and so on, we have those venues that will help enable those dreams. And so there's a structure to that. And I wanted to mention that within that context, the amount of international participation that we have benefited from has been amazing. The very first company that joined our incubator joined it because they saw us online from England. So they showed up and said, "Hey, we want to be part of this." And I said, "Well, that's awesome." And so we just made it work. Then we had a group from Belgium. So anyway, as time has come, we have a really good participation from Brazil. Now we're so blessed to have a relationship with you here in Guatemala. So even though we always wanted to make that happen, it's kind of happened a little bit before we expected it, because it was not a very clear path for that from our side. But we have been, because of the promotion of the support and promotion of the arts, that has generated very good relationships for us. So that has been a very key component to us. So within that context, obviously, we have to leverage everything that has to do with communications and the art. We have a publication called Maroon Weekly, which is Maroon is the colors of our university. So we have the kind of student publication that helps us promote the arts and education, all the way through that first venue that I mentioned to you, a 166-year-old theater. A lot of my friends tells me, "Jose, it's so cool that you own a bar." And I have to explain to them, I don't own a bar. We own a community development venue that has a bar. And by the way, we our most popular rum is from here, from the Zacapa XO. It's amazing. So thank you for that. So
I cannot take credit for that, but you're very welcome. And I think that's amazing, because something that we've seen as well within our ecosystem is that entrepreneurship is the best way forward to promote the arts and to promote the music industry, the film industry, and it's something that is very very intertwined with what we teach. So when this opportunity came to be, it was like a perfect match. And speaking about projects, and I think you've told us a little bit about this, but I would like to know what are the guiding principles that allow you to make a decision when you say, okay, this building has something. Maybe no one else is looking at this opportunity, but we see it. For example, the Ice House. That was a building that, as we saw in the film, it was derelict for 20 years, and you turn it into this amazing space, but not everyone could see that. So what do you look for in spaces?
I guess I should say that first we look at the people side rather than the place. And we try not to do things ourselves, so we only step up if no one else in the community can be convinced of taking over that project, because it's better to have participation from other parties. That building in particular was very challenging because it had been idle for a long time, so we did have to face some very hard problems. And I wanted to mention, I don't know if you see, the building looks pretty similar before and after we started. And the reason for that is because we're not a wealthy organization, so we have to leverage something that really fits well within our community. It's called adaptive reuse. And what that does, it allows us to expose instead of trying to restore everything to the original form or the original presence of a building, we embrace all the scars, all the history of it, the character of it, and so we actually highlight those problems. So I don't know if you probably did not notice on the metal roof in the front of the building, we actually had to replace about 30% of it. So we had to artificially weather some of those panels to make them look old, kind of rusty. But that's what is so attractive. The other thing that we looked at is we want to make sure that the community actually wants to put some love into that building. So one of our main challenges was the banks could not really fund that project because it's not a greenfield project. In other words, it's not starting from scratch. The banks really cannot afford the risk of investing or lending based on a building that has a lot of unknowns. So it may have lead issues, it may have soil or subsurface contamination, structural problems. So in our case, we had to develop our own fund. And to do that, we first invited the whole community to come and tell us, what do you want us to do with the building? And they are the ones that drove that piece. So we did not know that Bryan, College Station, our communities, is the wedding capital of Texas. Because on a per capita basis, we have a lot of brides because of A&M. So that's a great use for it. The building now generates about $400,000 of revenue every year. So that's a really what we call a high performance asset there in our community. And it did take about $2.5 million to restore to that level, including all the sound equipment and other things. But so looking at that building, what we didn't probably mention too clearly in the film was that the city actually gave us that as a gift. They wanted us to redevelop the Ice House just like we had redeveloped other buildings in downtown. It was a very expensive gift because we had to raise all that money, and we are technology developers, not building developers. So we learned a lot. I didn't used to have white hair or great hair, nor a beard, as you can tell. But anyway, it's been a great experience. We developed even more friends, and that has also had a very significant international draw. So the community is so proud of it, and we're pretty sure they're going to win some. Our community is going to win some national prizes because of that. And thank you for I think your work is going to contribute to that, by the way. So thank you for that.
And speaking about this pool that the place has, we saw a little bit in the film a part of the event of the Aggie Forum. That was the first Aggie Forum that has ever taken place, but it also tries to do this, right? To bring different minds with different interests and find solutions to problems. And yeah, we would like to know a little bit more about how that experience, how you lived that experience, and what ideas, what projects might have come out of that event.
It's funny because the Aggie Forum pretty much happened because of Joan, but she was not able. We have grandkids, and she had to be with them. Well, so first, Dr. Andrew Morris, who's the president, I think, the Antigua Forum this year. He played a big role in that context. One of the advantages, or one of the desires, was to make sure that this type of the forum, like the Antigua Forum, takes place on very special places. I must say that what you produce here in Antigua is one of the most beautiful and intriguing and interesting places. So we don't have that in Texas, but the university has a lot of really cool buildings that are just all very new, especially when it comes to the hotels and all that. They once you're inside, is just might as well be at any, nothing against Hilton, but any Hilton or any Marriott in the U.S. So there's no sense of place or identity, and that was one of the reasons that I believe they selected our venue, because they wanted that character to contribute to the event in some way, for people to know they're in a special place, and also for them to feel comfortable, feel at home. It's humbleness and humility is part of our core competency set, and we try to incorporate that in our projects as well. So we're very blessed by the fact that a lot of the participants have a very high degree of sense of ownership. It is their building, it is the community building, and so when Andy approached us about having the forum there, we thought, well, we were very thankful, but we thought it would be a great idea, especially because it's not just a special events venue, it's also a performance venue, and it has all those different components. As far as the results or the outcomes, there were such a variety of really interesting projects. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the context and the format, but those projects that were present diversify from nature research. One of the largest, if not the largest, collection of specimens in the world is at A&M. It's a catalog we have from birds to bats to sharks. It's just a great project. And one of the projects was how do we make that more available to our citizens in the world? And so that was one. And I'm familiar with that one because some of the outcomes for that dealt with that international exposure, being able to bring all these individuals from different countries and listen to that project. That was great. There were other projects that dealt with how to generate better access to education. I mean, there were just a number of different really good quality projects. I was pretty impressed with that. And I'm afraid that they're going to have probably now a series every year, which is going to be great. It's going to be great. And they may or may not have them at the Ice House, but if they do, it'll be fantastic.
And I think that is amazing because, as you were saying, this space was born out of being entrepreneurial, out of being innovative, and also it becomes this space that will probably project those forces beyond Brian. And my next question was addressed to that because I think it would be great for more people to learn what are the driving forces, so this can be replicated elsewhere. And I think the film ends with that invitation. I remember you had it very clearly that it's not only about this community, it's about you can take ownership and you can replicate this pretty much anywhere. So I guess my question is, if other people want to take ownership and want to be entrepreneurial about their own communities, what do you think are the guiding forces and the variables that they need to take into account to be able to undertake these projects and actually have something that has real impact?
So I think first and foremost, leadership is essential for any kind of real community development progress. And we are so fortunate because the city of Bryan has exceptional leadership. And they made really excellent choices in how they invested in infrastructure and put literally the infrastructure in place, redid all of the infrastructure in the city. So that investment, which was below ground and above ground and made streets look attractive and sidewalks look attractive, really made it so that entrepreneurs could come behind that public investment and make private investment. And they saw that the city was behind the effort. And so leadership is essential. And when we talk to community members, maybe they're not part of the community leadership, but when we talk to them and they say, oh, man, we want to work with you, we have to look at that first. There needs to be leadership in place that's ready to make decisions that are sometimes very difficult, but also have a long view, because it takes a long time to undertake these types of community and economic development projects that are in a city and like in this type of a historic downtown setting. But also landowners maybe can do something similar. So in agricultural environments, that's actually a little bit easier because the landowner owns the land and there's generally not as many regulatory or political issues involved. So the vision also then is very important. And in fact, that's one of the reasons we've spent so many years and so much time on the effort in Bryan, is so that people could come and see possibilities. Because so often in these areas where there's great opportunity for heritage preservation and creating amazing, authentic experiences, what exists currently is overwhelming. And it's difficult to have the vision. It's difficult to look past the blight or look past really the difficult areas or the poverty or whatever is hampering what can be. It's difficult to look past that. And so we bring leaders who have a desire but perhaps don't have the vision to Bryan often and show them where we were and where we are and what you can do. And that helps a lot. So helping them to see what they have in terms of potential and help them to imagine the possibilities, and then just put together a really sound strategy that is absolutely rooted in financial sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability, the community and the people who are going to participate in this place have to want it. And so that's how we started with the Ice House, and that's part of, in the film, you saw with the dots on the screens and everything. We went to the community, and when we knew we were going to have the building, we went to them and said, this is your project. What do you want? So they own it. It's theirs. And we asked them. So that's akin to market research, right? But really understanding what does the market need or want? What is the community willing to invest in? And then having the leadership and the vision. Those things are absolutely essential.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I will now proceed to invite our students, but before inviting them over to the stage, I would like to thank you again for your time and being here with us, but more importantly, for believing in our students as much as we do, because, I mean, this project happened because you had the willingness to collaborate and receive them in your hometown and in your home, and I think that was a great experience for everyone, and we will hear about it with more detail from them. But yeah, I just wanted to make that announcement beforehand.
Thank you. And I wanted to invite everybody to come see us, come visit us. We will organize something very special for you. I don't know, we'll have plenty of rum, but we'll have some tequila as well, and some Texas whiskey that is becoming relevant. But not, we'll please come see us, and we have our humble home there. It's not that big, but we can take on 10 people maybe. So we hope we can host you there as our guests.
Thank you very much. So now I would like to invite our students and welcome them to the stage. So the idea of this part of the panel is to tell everyone about the story behind the story that we've just seen. So I would like to ask you if you could please tell us a little bit about your role within this project and how you arrived to the creative and artistic proposal that we've just experienced. And we can start with you, Gabi, our director.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Gabi, and I'm the director of the project. And I would say my first step towards this project, since they pitched it to me, was doing my research. So I wanted to know what Brian was, what heritage preservation was, and why is it so important in a community. So while doing my research, I came up with a premise and an idea that has always been really interesting to me. And it is that as young people, we believe that in order to improve your community, you need to leave your community and then come back and improve it. But the problem is sometimes people don't come back, or sometimes you don't leave at all. So while doing my research, I fell in love with Brian, basically. And I think it's such an interesting case because you have this town that in the 1950s, it was thriving and it was a center of commerce. And then what usually happened, which is people moved away from the center. And the commerce also moved away, so it basically became like a ghost town. But it was by the initiative of their own people that it was brought back to life. So what I wanted to transmit with this documentary was, what happens when the people from within take that initiative, and through heritage preservation and through innovation and through entrepreneurship, they do something new and basically bring their community back to life.
Thank you very much. Yeah, could you please tell us a little bit about your role and your creative proposal behind the project?
My name is Rodrigo, and I was the editor and the sound on location and the music supervisor. And, well, my proposal was based on how the entire town was like a rebirth or a reconstruction over the things that were already there. Mm-hmm. So, at first, on the film, we start with a slow pace, like a rising sun, like a new era of this town. So we are contemplating how the buildings were, the ghost town that it was. Then we start picking up the pace, like midday. So the pace is a little bit faster. We can see all the events they had, all the new buildings, all the new thriving businesses that were there, and show how vibrating those were and how the people were happy by doing this themselves. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, we slow down a pace a little bit so we can contemplate how the things are now, how we can see how beautiful the town is thanks to the people in the community.
Thank you very much. And Michelle, as director of photography, could you please explain to us a little bit more about your creative vision and why you decided to take some of the shots that we can appreciate in the film?
Hi. The main inspiration for the visual proposal for this film is to take Brian as a character that has its own personality, conformed by the people that constantly are taking action to make Brian stand out. So Brian, it is presented as a character, and that was the intention by using frames that were low angle and presented the architecture, the buildings, the people as vibrant and powerful.
Thank you. And yeah, so this is an international co-production, and for most of you, the first time you're traveling abroad and working. So I would like to know a little bit more about how that felt and how you prepared for such an experience, because you had enough time, but not a lot of time. So once you landed, you had pretty much to hit the ground running, produce a documentary in a town that you've never been before, which is a great accomplishment in its own right. So if you could please tell us a little bit more how you made it happen, how you prepare for such an experience, and how did you feel throughout the process?
Okay, so like you said, I have traveled before and I have done projects abroad before. But the interesting thing about this one and the interesting thing about a documentary is that you don't have a script. So you don't have lines, and people are not going to say exactly what you want them to say. So the interesting thing about that is we did like a really really intense pre-production. So we sat down and we said, okay, we're going to have to be ready as much as we can before we get there. So as a director, I need to understand the story very well and the points, which is divided onto 3 acts. So I need to understand very well those acts in order to think like I want this person to say this, for example. So what do I need to ask? So from my part, I had to do like those questions really specifically, and also get to understand like the background of the place, the background of the people, and how people see Brian and this whole heritage preservation movement.
Well, before we went to Texas, as Gabi said, we had a lot of gatherings and we did an intense pre-production to what we were going to film, what buildings, we did research on what they were used for. So pretty much we landed and we started filming every building they had. And they had events and we went to those events. We had some people that they prepared for us to interview. And well, it was like visiting the hometown. We explored the whole city. We took pictures, we took videos, we saw everything, and we took everything we could.
Thank you. And you guys are an example of that talent that the city is attracting. So I would also like to know, Michelle, if you could tell us a little bit more about your impressions as a visitor, not only as a filmmaker, but also as a visitor, of how you perceived Brian, the community, and the different establishments and places that we've already talked about.
Right. It was very surprising because we interviewed the people that you saw in the film, and it all made sense because of the research we had already made when we were here in Guatemala. And however, it was also very surprising that we interviewed people that weren't part of the interviews, and they were amazed that we were making a documentary about Brian. They didn't thought that that was a thing, and they weren't aware of the opportunities and all of the changes that are being made in Brian, all the projects. So that was the impression that I had on the people that we interview, like more not that prepared with specific questions, but it was more spontaneous when we asked them, and they weren't aware entirely of that change that is taking place in Brian.
So a film like this could increase awareness as well.
Well, my perception of the community was amazing. They were all friendly, too friendly. One day we went to a farmer's market and we were just taking shots of the people of the community. And a guy called E.T., I think was his name, approached us and started talking about the city and how it was on the old times and how he was present on how they were renewing the whole city. And he was so happy to see that we were making a documentary about it because he knew they did a great job. They put effort into it and they put time and they really wanted this project to go forward. And well, the community is beautiful. All the buildings are amazing. All the events are so friendly. Everywhere you look, you get a smile back. The people are really nice. It's really safe. The weather's great. The whole community is really amazing.
We've talked a lot about entrepreneurship, and all of you are artists and entrepreneurs as well. And this is a different type of experience, collaborating with people from abroad, traveling, documenting new ways of doing things. So I would like to ask each of you, what are the main takeaways, and what are the lessons you take from this experience for your future careers as artists, but also as entrepreneurs?
So one of the biggest takeaways for me was that I never worked with an international client before, and they were the first. So I didn't know how to keep a connection a connection to know what they wanted. Like just I thought it was just they just said is the idea we want, and you have to do it. But we had a constant connection. They told us what they wanted. We told them what we needed to do that, and well, all the post production was really another takeaway too. Like the production, the teamwork we had in that production. We were all sitting together working on the editing and the storyline and all the takes. So my takeaway mainly is the international client and the teamwork.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yes, I agree with Rodrigo that it was very important learning how to work as a team group, and also it was very surprising in the Aggie Forum realizing that film school, the idea of a project like a film school like this developed because of an event like the Aggie Forum and the Antigua Forum. So I am more aware of the importance that entrepreneurship has on the skills that we can develop as a filmmaker, and that these skills are part of filmmaking and developing films and projects, and that we need to, as filmmakers, be more aware of the importance of entrepreneurship.
Thank you. Gabby?
For me, I would say my biggest takeaway was inspiration. I was really inspired by the community. I was really surprised too by how passionate people and business owners were about their businesses. Like there are people that literally grab a building and give them a new use, and they're so passionate about their work every day. So I got to see entrepreneurship in a whole new way. And sometimes we as artists forget about entrepreneurship, but I don't know, it made me remember that it doesn't matter what you do or where you are, whether it's a small or big community. I think entrepreneurship is something we should all live by and we should all practice every day.
Thank you very much, guys. muchísimas gracias. Gracias por acompañarnos, por dedicarnos su tiempo y estar aquí con nosotros. Thank you very much for being here with us again. Y excelente trabajo. Muchas gracias también a ustedes por la dedicación.